Imagine this. You're sitting in your car outside her apartment. It's late, your stomach is twisted in knots, and you're rehearsing the same conversation for the 10th time, hoping tonight will be different. She's angry again, and you don't even know why. You replay the week in your head, searching for the mistake, the wrong word, the missed signal, but nothing adds up. That's the trap. You think if you can just find the right words, if you can just be patient enough, generous enough, she'll calm down, she'll come back, she'll finally love you the way you've been loving her. But here's the brutal truth. She's not angry because of something you did. She's angry because control is her drug, and your confusion is the needle she injects it with. Some women don't scream to break you. They don't hit you. They don't leave obvious scars. They use silence, withdrawal, and subtle accusations like scalpels, cutting you open without leaving a mark. She disappears when you don't bend. She goes cold when you don't obey. She withholds affection until you chase, until you kneel, until you believe the only way to earn her warmth again is to give up more of yourself. And here's the part that twists the knife. You think her silence means you failed. You think her withdrawal is punishment for your lack of effort. So you double down. You call more, text more, explain more. Every time she pulls back, you step forward, bleeding dignity in the process. You know that sick feeling in your stomach when she doesn't reply? That's not love. That's a leash. And every unanswered message, every icy stare across the table, every "I just need space" is her way of tightening it. Women who play this game know exactly how long you'll hold out before your panic pushes you to chase. And the moment you chase, she wins. Your fear of losing her is the lever she uses to move your entire world. But let's flip the script. What happens when you stop chasing? What happens when her silence is met with your silence, when her withdrawal meets your indifference? She panics. Because her control doesn't work anymore. She texts first. She asks why you've gone quiet. She demands answers to questions she used to punish you with. You feel the power shift. And here's the secret. You didn't do anything new. You simply stopped bleeding for her attention. You broke the spell by refusing to play the role she cast you in. The truth is, a woman can only break you if you hand her the weapon, and most men hand it over willingly. You do it by giving her your time without her earning it. You do it by explaining yourself when you don't need to. You do it by apologizing just to keep the peace, even when you've done nothing wrong. You think these are acts of love. They're not. They're acts of surrender. And every surrender makes her stronger while making you weaker. If you want to make sure no woman can break you again, you need to build the one muscle modern men neglect: emotional restraint. It's not about being cold, it's about being in control of yourself. When she withdraws, you don't chase. When she lashes out, you don't defend every accusation. When she demands proof of love through sacrifice, you offer nothing but presence. Because here's what most men don't understand. Silence, indifference, and boundaries are not just defenses. They are weapons. And the moment you learn to use them, manipulation loses its grip on you. You've been trained to think women leave because you didn't do enough. Wrong. The women who leave because you didn't do enough were never going to stay no matter how much you gave. The women who are worth your time don't test your devotion by starving you of theirs. They meet you halfway. They invest as much as you invest. They love without conditions, without ultimatums, without the games that keep you up at night wondering if you're enough. Here's your first tactic. The next time she goes cold, do nothing. Don't text, don't explain, don't chase. Let the silence expand until she can't stand it. Two things will happen. She'll either break the silence herself, revealing that the power was always yours, or she'll stay gone. And if she stays gone, that's not a loss. That's the freedom you were too afraid to give yourself. Think about how many nights you've lost sleep, how many hours of your life you've wasted explaining yourself, apologizing for things you never did, rehearsing words to soothe storms you didn't create. Think about what you could have built with that energy if it wasn't swallowed by her chaos. That's the cost of letting a woman break you. Not just your heart, your focus, your ambition, your identity. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself into exhaustion, stop. The next time you feel the itch to chase when she withdraws, resist. The next time her silence twists your stomach into knots, breathe. And remember, her silence is her problem, not yours. The only question that matters is whether you'll keep giving her the weapon or finally take it back. Have you ever been in that exact moment, staring at your phone, waiting for her reply while your dignity drained with every passing minute. What did you do when the silence became unbearable? And if you could go back to that moment, what would you do differently now? You probably already know this pattern too well. At first, she seems like the answer to everything you've been searching for. She listens, she laughs at your jokes, she looks at you like you matter. You let your guard down because you want to believe it's finally safe to breathe. But slowly, the little digs begin. She questions your choices, not directly, but with a raised eyebrow, a sigh, a dismissive comment that makes you second-guess yourself. She doesn't scream at you. She rewrites your reality in whispers, and before you even notice it happening, you've started adjusting your behavior just to avoid those subtle punishments. You cancel plans with your friends because you know she'll be upset. You stop talking about certain topics because you know it will start an argument. You start editing yourself to fit her moods. That's how men break. Not in explosions of betrayal, but in the slow erosion of self. Every compromise feels small at first, but over time you look in the mirror and don't recognize the man staring back. You've given up so much ground that you can't even remember where your boundaries used to be. And here's the cruelest part. She didn't force you. She just nudged, pulled back, gave or withheld approval in tiny doses. You handed over the pieces of yourself one at a time, thinking it was love. But let's tell the truth. Love doesn't require you to shrink. It doesn't demand silence, fear, or self-erasure. That isn't love. It's control disguised as intimacy. And if you've ever been in that situation, you know the exhaustion that comes with it. The way you lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out why you feel so drained even though you're supposedly loved. This is where strategy comes in. If you want to make sure no woman can break you again, you need to develop the ability to spot these patterns early, before they wrap around you like chains. Watch for how she reacts to your independence. Does she encourage your time with friends, your passions, your goals, or does she quietly punish you for them? Watch for how she handles your boundaries. Does she respect them, or does she test them with guilt and pressure? Watch for how she uses vulnerability. Does she share to connect, or does she share to dump her chaos onto you, making you her emotional trash can? The shift begins when you stop trying to fix her moods and start observing her patterns. You've been conditioned to believe that your job is to regulate her emotions, that if she's upset it's your failure. But that's a lie. Her emotions are hers to manage. When you take responsibility for them, you don't become her hero, you become her hostage. Here's the tactic. The next time she tries to shift responsibility for her emotions onto you, don't take the bait. She says, "You made me feel this way." You respond, calm and steady, "Number you felt this way, and I'll let you process it." You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't absorb. You hold the line, and watch how quickly the dynamic shifts. A woman who respects you will recognize that you're not her emotional dumping ground. A woman who wants control will escalate because you've just cut her off from her supply. Either way, you win because you see her clearly now. This clarity is your shield. You can't be broken by what you recognize. It's the shadows that destroy you, the unseen strings that pull your behavior without your awareness. Once you see the strings, you can choose whether to play along or cut them entirely. And cutting them doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes it just means refusing to dance when she plays the same old tune. Sometimes it means letting her sit in her silence instead of rushing to fill it. Sometimes it means reclaiming your weekends, your friendships, your passions without apology. You want to know what freedom feels like? It's the moment you realize you don't have to explain yourself to be valid. You don't have to convince her of your worth. You don't have to negotiate for respect. The man who understands this walks differently. He speaks less, but his words carry more weight. He doesn't scramble for attention because he knows attention is earned, not begged for. And women, even the manipulative ones, feel that difference immediately. They know they can't bend him, so they either adjust or they leave. And if they leave, let them. Because a woman who can only stay when she's breaking you is not a woman you want at your side. Now ask yourself this. How many times have you confused her chaos for passion? How many times have you mistaken her withdrawal for depth? And when you look back, how much of yourself did you trade just to keep the illusion alive? Some women don't steal your strength all at once. They do it drip by drip until you can't tell where you end and where she begins. It starts with little demands. Answer my text faster. Cancel that plan. Don't talk to her. Don't wear that. You give in because it feels easier, because you don't want to fight over something so small. But it never stops at small. Soon, she's dictating how you spend your weekends, who you see, what you share, and then comes the slow bleed of your confidence. Every criticism is framed as just being honest. Every comparison is just constructive. Before long, you've absorbed her judgment as truth. You second-guess your words, your choices, your instincts. You stop living as yourself and start living as her reflection. This is how men lose themselves. And the tragedy is, you think you're doing it for love. You think sacrifice proves commitment. But what you're really doing is surrendering territory in a war you didn't even know you were fighting. Because make no mistake, this is war. Emotional war. A battle fought with guilt, withdrawal, accusations, and silence. And if you're not prepared, if you don't know the weapons being used against you, you will lose without even realizing you are under attack. So what's the strategy? First, you have to reclaim the idea of boundaries. Not the soft, please don't do that boundaries you whisper, hoping she'll understand. I mean hard boundaries. The kind that don't need long explanations. The kind that exist because you said so, not because she agrees. If she goes through your phone, you don't argue. You say, do that again and I walk. If she tries to isolate you from your friends, you don't debate. You go see them anyway. If she punishes you with silence, you don't chase. You let her sit in her own void while you live your life. The power in boundaries isn't what you tell her. It's what you're willing to enforce. Most men fail here. They talk about boundaries, but when they're tested, they fold. Why? Because they're afraid of losing her. But here's the paradox. Every time you fold to keep her, you've already lost her, because she no longer respects you. And once respect is gone, attraction follows. Think back to the moments when you bent over backwards to prove yourself. Did it ever actually make her love you more? Or did it just move the goalposts so she could demand more the next time? That's the trap. She doesn't want your sacrifices. She wants your submission. And once she knows you'll give it, she'll never stop taking. The way out is brutal but simple. You must be willing to walk away. Not as a bluff, not as a game, but as a living truth. When you know in your bones that you can leave any woman who tries to break you, you become unbreakable. That willingness isn't arrogance. It's self-respect. It's the refusal to sacrifice your identity on the altar of someone else's insecurity. The man who can walk away never begs, never explains, never defends his worth. He simply sets the standard and lets her decide if she can meet it. If she can, good. If she can't, goodbye. And here's what shocks most men. The women who matter, the women who are healthy, are drawn to that strength like a magnet. Because they don't want a servant, they want a partner. Only the manipulative ones recoil when they realize you can't be controlled. So let me hand you the tactic that will save you years of wasted time. Stop rewarding bad behavior. If she punishes you with silence, don't reward it with pursuit. If she criticizes you unfairly, don't reward it with apologies. If she crosses your boundary, don't reward it with another chance. Reward only what you want more of. Respect, effort, kindness, loyalty. Everything else gets ignored, rejected, or walked away from. This is how you flip the script. You stop being reactive, constantly managing her moods, trying to fix her storms, and you become proactive. You decide the standards, the rules, the terms of your involvement. She can either rise to meet them, or she can go. But either way, you're not broken, because you didn't build your life on her approval in the first place. Now ask yourself this. How many times have you rewarded a woman for treating you badly, just to avoid losing her? How many times did you think keeping the peace was worth the cost of your pride? And when you look back, was she ever truly yours, or just your captor in disguise? Picture this. You're in the middle of an argument you didn't start. She throws accusations at you that make no sense. Selfish, controlling, distant. Deep down, you know it isn't true. But instead of standing your ground, you rush to defend yourself. You talk for hours. You explain your intentions. You revisit old conversations trying to prove your innocence. And the more you defend, the guiltier you feel. By the end, you're apologizing for things you didn't do, just to make the fight stop. That, right there, is how you hand her the knife and let her cut you open. Some women are masters of projection. They accuse you of what they themselves are doing. They call you selfish when they're the ones taking. They call you distant when they're the ones pulling away. They call you controlling when they're the ones tightening the leash. The trick works because it hijacks your sense of fairness. You don't want to be that guy, the selfish man, the cold man, the manipulator. So you fight to prove you're not. But that fight is the trap. Because the moment you're fighting to prove who you are, you've already lost sight of it. Men break when they stop trusting their own perception of reality. And projection is designed to do exactly that. When you start asking yourself, maybe she's right, maybe I am the problem, you've already stepped into her frame. And once you're inside her frame, she controls the game. So how do you win? By refusing to play. When she says, you don't care about me, don't defend. You look her in the eye and say, I know who I am. If you don't, that's your problem. When she says, you're trying to control me, don't justify. You shrug and answer, believe what you want. When she says, you're selfish, don't argue. You respond with action, living your life on your terms, not bending to disprove her accusations. Here's the key. You can't prove yourself to someone who's invested in misunderstanding you. Every word you speak in self-defense only digs the hole deeper. The way out is brutal clarity. You stop trying to convince, and you start observing. If she consistently projects, she's showing you her own reflection, not yours. And you don't need to fix her reflection. You only need to decide if you'll tolerate it. This is where most men fail. They confuse endurance with strength. They think taking the hits without leaving makes them loyal, noble, masculine. But endurance isn't strength if it destroys you. Strength is walking away when the cost of staying is your sanity. Strength is holding your truth so firmly that no accusation can shake it. Strength is silence in the face of manipulation, because you know your life speaks louder than her words ever will. Think about it. How many hours of your life have you wasted defending yourself against lies? How many times have you walked out of an argument more confused than when it began? That fog you feel isn't an accident. It's design. Chaos is her battlefield, and clarity is your weapon. The less you explain, the clearer you become, the less you justify, the stronger you stand. Tactically, here's what you do. Set a rule. Never explain more than once. If she asks for clarification, give it once, calmly, directly. After that, silence. Not defensive silence, not sulking silence, but confident silence. The silence of a man who knows his own truth. She'll either adjust to that energy, or she'll escalate. And if she escalates, you don't match it. You disengage. You leave the room. You go live your life. Because here's the secret most men never learn. Disengagement is the ultimate test. A woman who values you will chase your clarity. A woman who only values control will chase your attention. And here's the part that stings. If you realize she only ever wanted control, then losing her isn't a loss. It's liberation. So let me ask you directly, how many times have you let her frame define who you are? How often have you defended yourself so much that you started doubting yourself? And when was the last time you stood in silence, unshaken, and made her sit with her own accusations, instead of carrying them on your back? Now imagine the final stage of this cycle. You've bent, explained, defended, sacrificed, until there's barely anything left of you. And then one day she looks at you, the same woman you've poured yourself into, the one you protected, the one you believed you were building a life with, and she says the words that collapse your chest. I don't feel the same anymore. Or worse, she doesn't say anything at all. She just drifts, goes cold, replaces you with silence and absence until you realize she's already gone. This is the cruel irony. After all your effort, all your devotion, all your compromises, she walks away anyway, and you're left with nothing but an empty shell of yourself. That's when it hits you. She didn't break you in one moment. She broke you in pieces, slowly, every time you chose her feelings over your own, every time you traded your dignity for temporary peace, every time you surrendered the truth of who you were, just to keep her from leaving. And here's the truth you need to hear, even if it burns. She never had the power to break you. You handed her the pieces she used. But this is also where the transformation begins. The moment you see clearly that no woman can take from you what you refuse to give, you stop being a victim of manipulation and start becoming a man who cannot be broken. The shift isn't about hating women. It's about mastering yourself. You cannot control her games, but you can control your response. You cannot stop her silence, but you can refuse to chase it. You cannot erase her chaos, but you can build a life so full of purpose, discipline, and boundaries that her chaos has nowhere to land. Detachment is the weapon. Not coldness, not bitterness, but calm detachment. You stop seeing her moods as commands. You stop measuring your worth by her approval. You stop treating her attention as oxygen. The man who is centered, who is rooted, who knows his own value, without needing it mirrored back, is untouchable. Because he doesn't fear loss. He doesn't beg for loyalty. He doesn't collapse under rejection. He recognizes that love is a choice, not a leash. And if someone chooses to leave, he lets them walk not because he doesn't care, but because he refuses to betray himself to keep what was never his. So how do you live this in practice? You build your standards and enforce them ruthlessly. You demand respect not with shouting, but with silence when disrespected. You walk away from manipulation without second chances. You invest in yourself so deeply, your body, your mind, your mission, that no woman's withdrawal feels like the end of your world. You learn to enjoy solitude so thoroughly that her absence doesn't terrify you. It clarifies you. You don't need her to complete you. You choose her to complement you. And if she doesn't, you replace her absence with your own presence. That is the man who cannot be broken. And that is who you must become if you want to survive the emotional war of modern dating. Because the truth is, some women will test you. Some will try to manipulate you. Some will see what they can take before you notice. But a man who refuses to hand over his dignity cannot be kept in chains. He may feel pain, yes. He may grieve, but he will not shatter. Because his identity is not for sale, not for negotiation, not for compromise. Remember this: she didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. Now you know better. Now you armor yourself not with walls, but with clarity, with discipline, with the unshakable knowledge that you are whole without her. And the moment you live from that truth, no woman can ever break you again. So tell me, have you reached that point yet where you finally realized losing her wasn't the end of you, it was the beginning of you? What's harder for you right now? Setting the boundary or enforcing it when it's tested? And if you had to choose between her approval and your self-respect, which one would you finally keep?